Welcome to another episode of the STR Investing Podcast. My name is Taylor, and I will be rocking a solo episode today as we dive into how to build a buy box for yourself. So a lot of people ask me with short-term rental acquisitions, what should my buy box be or how do I build it? And there's a lot of different things, but we're going to, really unpack some simplistic things you can do for relatively cheap if you do not have access to capital or technology to really build a nice, efficient buy box for you to hunt your own short-term rental. So first thing is, once you've narrowed down the market or markets that you want to be into, what you need to decide is where's the best place within this market to buy a short-term rental. And there's a couple different tools you can use to figure that out. So first thing you could do is go to Airbnb under the traveler side. So sign in just on your own account as a guest and type in the city. So let's just say you're doing Austin, Texas. Don't put any dates. And if you're considering buying a 4-bed or a 5-bed or a 6-bed or a 3-bed, put in the appropriate number of guests. So let's just say you were going to do a 4-bed, you were thinking of buying that sleeps 10. Just put 10 guests in. Like I said, no time limit of where on the calendar. And then what you're going to do is push search. And what Airbnb is going to do is spit up a map of all of the properties that it's going to show on page one. Now, you're going to see a range in and around not only Austin City, but the suburbs. And Airbnb is playing the odds that these are going to convert with you as the traveler. So what you want to do is take a good look and jot down geographically where some of these show up on page one, and then click to page two and take a note there. This is going to give you a really good idea of where the properties are being served up from a traveler side. It's a good idea to try to invest where the most amount of that data is. If there's not a lot of other properties on the north side of town, for example, you're probably rolling the dice and gambling a little bit by buying something on the north side as there's not as much top performers there. Airbnb is going to serve up top performers on page one and page two because those are the ones most likely to get booked by a traveler. So you want to be in those similar areas, whether that's the south side, the west side, the east side, wherever it might be. Now, once you narrow in on the location, the next thing you need to figure out is what amenities should you be adding to your property. So again, what you can do manually here is open up all of the listings on page one and start writing down a list of amenities. Hey, this has a pool, game room, fire pit, hot tub. This listing, fire pit, game room, sauna, and build out what I would call a commonalities list. So you're going to get 20 to 40 data points depending on how deep into page one and page two of Airbnb search that you go. And what you're going to want to do is look for what those commonality trends are. So if again, you have a sample size of 20 or 30 properties, do 80% of them have a pool? That should tell you how important pool is. Do 5% of them have a pool? Well, that should tell you it's probably not that important. So now you're going to have a commonalities list of what amenities are going to be necessary to win in that market from top performers by looking at page one and page two. And then next thing you're going to understand is what's the design style. So you're going to have to kind of jot down what are some of the design styles. So again, open up, all those listings and write down, is it more modern? Is it, bright colors, family centric? Is it very pink heavy, bachelorette? Is it more traditional? Whatever that style is, start looking for commonalities. And then that way you can mimic that as well for your property. What you want to do is do what the best performers are, and then you can add your own little wrinkle to it, whether it's a slight design accent, a slight extra amenity that nobody else has or very few do. These are the ways that you're going to be able to differentiate your short-term rental amongst the top performers. Now, when it comes to the actual performance, like we've talked about, you're going to have to use data tools such as AirDNA or Rabbu. But this is now going to give you a really good idea from a simplistic version of where you should consider buying your short-term rental, what amenities your short-term rental property needs to have, and then lastly, what design elements you need to put together. These are going to be a very quick and simplistic way to figure out how to build a buy box for cheap. Now, once you do this, you still might realize there's not a lot of profitable opportunities because just because you narrow down where to go, what to buy, and what amenities to add, ultimately, once you pull the revenue numbers from AirDNA or Rabbu, you're going to need to understand the cost of physical real estate on Zillow or the MLS that you need to ultimately buy to make that happen. So if you're realizing that 4 bedrooms cost a certain purchase price, and then you underwrite it against the realistic revenue ranges that you're seeing for other 4 bedrooms, that's the part where you need to understand, do you have enough spread to turn profitability? if there is not enough of a gap between the revenue and the purchase price, you're simply not going to make cash flow at the end of the day. So really doing that exercise over and over with different markets that you have will help you understand, is this market profitable? And then ultimately, how do I build a buy box from it? Now, let's say you want to do this with a little bit of capital to it. So, we went over first the very free way and economical. The second thing you could do is, get a premium subscription to, one of the data sources like AirDNA or Rabbu. And now when you're going into that market, so let's now go into Austin, you can really unpack the data further by just looking at the chart that they have listed of where all those top performing properties are located. And then you're going to be able to start seeing revenue numbers pop up on those. So obviously, if you see a lot of high performing 6-figure revenue properties, think over 100 grand or 150 or 200 in a certain area, that's a good place to be because those are high revenue producing properties and locations. If you see a lot of less than optimal, maybe 50, 60, 70, $80,000 revenue producing properties for a single family home, that's where you're going to probably want to stay away from because clearly there isn't anybody else generating high revenue in those markets. Those are the kind of things you're going to want to use if you are willing to pay a little extra in your investment on the data and research side. So again, go into those tools and take a peek. There also will be filters that you can now play around with on the amenity stack. What is the value of a pool? What about a hot tub? What about an EV charger? What about a fire pit? So again, you can now use some data tools to really piece this together optimally and figure out, is this a good buy box I can build for this market? And when you do this, you'll now be able to, again, go back to Zillow and figure out, is this market profitable? So again, we're solving for one half of it, which is what is the ideal product to own, the amenities, the design, but ultimately that's just half the equation because whatever you buy it for will determine your profitability. We don't want to be buying a house for $2 million that only generates $150,000 in revenue. We want to buy that for significantly less. That way we have spread in order to turn a profit. So these are some easy, quick and affordable ways that you can build out a buy box for yourself to understand, is this a market I want to go to? Is it profitable? And then ultimately, where should I buy? What should I buy? How should I design it? And what amenities do I need to add to this property to succeed? Those are the quick and dirty ways that you could do that. If you do not want to spend the time and you would like to hire a professional, obviously, the pros over at strsearch.com will take care of you as they've done this exercise 600 plus times across the country to be able to really help you narrow in a buy box quickly, efficiently, and get your property under contract in 30 days or less. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Until always, we'll see you next time.